Between 1979 and 1982, a phantom killer haunted the American Midwest. 14 women were murdered across Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, each crime scene marked by a chilling signature, a poem left with the victim. For decades, the killer remained a ghost, the case growing colder with each passing year. Then, in 2024, a breakthrough. Advanced DNA technology pointed to one man, Thomas Whitmore. But there was a problem, a massive, impossible problem. Thomas Whitmore had been locked up in a maximum security prison since November 1978, 5 months before the very first murder. How could a man in a prison cell be a serial killer in 3 different states? Detective Laura Martinez, a specialist in cold case DNA analysis, was stunned. When the national DNA database CODIS returned a 99.9% match for Thomas Whitmore, she assumed it was a glitch. The DNA was everywhere, on the victims, on items left at the scenes. It was a mountain of biological evidence, but how? Martinez had the results confirmed by 3 separate labs. The answer was always the same. The DNA belonged to Thomas Whitmore. It was scientifically undeniable and factually impossible. The evidence screamed that he was the killer, while prison records proved he couldn't be. Martinez drove to Riverdale Maximum Security Prison. There, she met a frail 68-year-old man who had been incarcerated for 46 years. When she brought up the murders, Thomas Whitmore was utterly confused. His alibi was ironclad. For every single killing, he had been behind bars. Prison logs, guard rosters, visitor records, even grainy surveillance footage from the 1980s confirmed it. Thomas Whitmore was in a locked cell while someone with his exact DNA was committing a string of brutal murders. It was a paradox that defied all logic, and Martinez realized she was facing a case unlike any other. She dug deep into Thomas's past. Born in Detroit, raised in the foster care system with no known family. He was arrested for armed robbery at 22 and handed a life sentence. A model prisoner, but there was a strange note in his sealed childhood records. Martinez obtained a court order to open them, and what she found blew the case wide open. Thomas Whitmore wasn't an only child. He was born an identical twin. He and his brother David were separated at birth by an adoption agency following a controversial and since discredited policy. Martinez finally had a new suspect, one who shared Thomas's DNA. Finding David Whitmore was like chasing a ghost. His trail went cold in 1977, 2 years before the murders began. No tax records, no driver's license, nothing. He had simply vanished. Just as Martinez started to fear he was dead, a DMV search turned up a chilling lead. In 1978, just months before the killing spree started, David Whitmore had legally changed his name to Daniel Wright. For 46 years, Daniel Wright had lived a quiet life. A retired music teacher in a small Pennsylvania town, he never married and had no criminal record under his new name. When Martinez and a tactical team breached his front door, they found the 68-year-old man sitting calmly at his piano. He looked up, his face a mirror image of the man in prison, and said, "I've been waiting for you. I knew the DNA would find me eventually." In his basement, the team discovered a secret room that silenced them all. The walls were a horrifying collage of newspaper clippings, victim photos, and handwritten journals detailing every murder. He had preserved evidence for over 4 decades. This wasn't just a confession, it was a museum of his crimes. During interrogation, Daniel was calm, almost relieved. He confessed to all 14 murders, providing details only the killer could know. When asked why, his motive was as twisted as the crimes themselves. "Thomas took everything from me," he said. "I wanted him to know what it felt like to be trapped forever. I wanted to become him." Daniel revealed his obsession. After discovering he had a twin, he tracked Thomas down and stalked him for a year. When Thomas was arrested, Daniel saw the perfect opportunity. He could commit crimes leaving his DNA behind, and his incarcerated twin would be the prime suspect, a man with no alibi and no way to defend himself. It was the ultimate revenge for a life he felt was stolen from him. But forensic psychologists saw something more. Daniel Wright wasn't just a man seeking revenge. He was a textbook psychopath. He'd been harming animals since childhood. The twin revenge story was his cover, a narrative he built to justify his inherent desire to kill. His victims weren't random. All 14 women were connected to music: teachers, orchestra members, music enthusiasts. He used his identity as a musician to gain their trust. The poems he left behind were lyrics from classical pieces, his signature connecting the crimes to himself while framing his brother. Martinez had to deliver the devastating news to Thomas. In a sterile prison interview room, she told him about David. Thomas broke down, sobbing. He never knew he had a brother. For 46 years he'd been in prison, while his twin was leaving a trail of death that pointed directly to him. If this had happened in the 80s, Thomas would have been executed for crimes he couldn't possibly have committed, but the story took one final, darker turn. Martinez re-examined the 1978 robbery that put Thomas away. The store owner's description didn't quite match Thomas. An anonymous tip had led police directly to Thomas's apartment, where they found the stolen money. Martinez tracked down the elderly shop owner. When she showed him photos of both brothers, he pointed at David's picture. "That's him," he said, agitated. "That's the man who robbed me." David hadn't just used his brother as a scapegoat. He had engineered his imprisonment from the very beginning. He robbed the store, planted the money, and made the call. He put his twin in a cage to create the perfect alibi for the monster he was about to become. This meant Thomas Whitmore was innocent of everything. His entire adult life, from age 22 to 68, had been stolen. The district attorney began proceedings to vacate his conviction. But the legal battle was complex. As this unfolded, investigators found more bodies buried in David's backyard. 3 more victims, bringing the total to at least 17. David's journals revealed his consuming hatred. He wanted to destroy his brother's legacy, ensuring Thomas would be remembered as a monster. At his trial, David showed no remorse, his only regret being that his brother wouldn't die in prison as a notorious serial killer. The jury convicted him on all counts. 6 months later, Thomas Whitmore walked out of prison, a free man after 46 years. The world was unrecognizable. The state offered compensation, but no amount of money could give him back his life. He told Martinez he didn't hate David. He only felt a profound sadness for the lives his brother's hatred had destroyed. The victims, David himself, and the twin who lost everything. The case was closed, but the damage was irreversible. Whispers from the past is closed. 17 victims finally have justice. 1 innocent man finally has freedom after 46 years. But this case reveals how DNA can both condemn and exonerate. Every week we investigate cases where science rewrites history. If you believe truth matters no matter how long it takes, subscribe to Cold Case Chronicles Unsolved. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, share with those who believe in justice. Together we ensure the innocent are freed and the guilty are found. Some cases whisper for decades before they scream. This is Cold Case Chronicles Unsolved. The investigation continues.